But I wasn't terribly depressed about. I mean, I had my crushes, and well, I remember one. She was very special, but I loved her only in dreams. And I got into a fair amount of trouble. I remember I had a teacher, and I drew some cartoon characters of him as a chief in Africa with a bone in his nose. And I called him Chief Go-Go Goins. The chief on the island, he taught math on the island of Mathagonga, deep in the tropics on the continent of Persentia. And he was checking our assignments, going around from table to table, and he saw that and he said, "Oh-ho, drawing pictures of me, I see." And I said, "No, no, 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 no." He found them all. He found those, and I had him in a band called Go-Go Goins and the Triangles. He found that, and it was just, I got sent to my homeroom teacher, and he said, "Bobby, you're going to have to accept that you're going to be going to Ashley High School soon, and they don't put up with this kind of behavior in high school." So I was duly warned and apologized to Mr. Goins. But I had a mischievous streak, and I enjoyed it even though nobody else really did. But I went to Frank L. Ashley High School in 1967. Pretty much oh, and by the way, I will mention that I was picked wittiest out of the class at Ray Junior High School. And I went to Ashley, pretty much kept to myself. Had a special teacher there named Mary Ann O'Connor, who taught drama, and she taught Latin. I took 3 years of Latin, which reminds me of what former Vice President Dan Quayle said. He went to Latin America, and he said he wished he had studied harder in school Latin so that he could communicate with the people in Latin America. But I'll tell you something I remember. I learned some little tricks. Nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative. Those are the cases in the Latin language, the dead language. And I remembered those cases. Naughty girls don't accuse Abner. Nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative. And that always helped me, and you see it was so helpful that I remembered it today, all these years later. But I very much enjoyed high school, again wishing that I'd studied harder. I happened to see the movie Your Cheating Heart on television one night, the Hank Williams Sr. story starring George Hamilton, soundtrack sung by Hank Williams Jr. And I was so captivated by Hank Williams Sr. and his talent that I wanted to become Hank Williams. And I had gotten up to around 210 pounds. I was very fat, very out of shape. I wanted to be skinny like Hank Williams. So I went on a very, very insane weight loss regimen and lost down to 125 pounds at a height then of around 6'1½". So you can imagine how terrible, how skeletal I looked. But I wanted to be like Hank Williams. I wanted to be skinny. And I bought a guitar. I got a guitar for Christmas and started and learned to play a little fundamental chords and start singing and playing a little bit and writing my own songs. And I only held 125 pounds about a week. I was usually around 140. Then I got tired of being skinny, started lifting weights, got big and muscular. I was very much an extremist, and I was extremely tired of being an extremist. But it was an interesting high school career. I think I probably barely passed, but was very much motivated in drama by Marianne O'Connor. She had me picked for the role of Alfred P. Doolittle in My Fair Lady. And I said, but Ms. O'Connor, I'm not an actor. She said, you are, Bob. You're a hell of an actor. And someday I can see myself coming backstage or on a Hollywood movie set to talk to you after you've become a successful actor. But I said, I don't have the handsome looks. And she said, that's irrelevant. It's not that important. You don't have to be extremely handsome. She said, you are a potentially great actor. Of course, I never really pursued that. But I went to Gaston College and, of course, spent 2 years there and got into the effort to try to save Crowder's Mountain and get it developed as a state park. Met my girlfriend at the time, and we subsequently lived together, me and her 2-year-old daughter at the time. And she was, my girlfriend was a widow whose husband had been killed in a tragic car wreck. And I think my radio career came about naturally because I was at the house that we lived in. And I got a phone call from a friend of ours, Randy Jenkins, who worked for WGNC Radio, and I was attending Carolina School of Broadcasting. And he said, Bob, he said, we have just selected you as an intern at WGNC Radio. And so that was pretty much the start of my radio career. I worked in the cotton mill, the Burlington Industries Flint plant, on the third shift at night. Went to Gaston College and then started my internship at WGNC Radio under Pat McSwain. So it pretty much just fell into place. Randy Jenkins left and became a disc jockey at Whammy Radio in Charlotte, which freed up his position. So Pat McSwain hired me, and I worked for WGNC from about 1972 to 1982 when they terminated me. And that's when I did most of my radio interviews with the country music artists, some of the movie stars, ministers, political figures. It was a very interesting time in my life. And I don't have any regrets at all about that.